Thank you, sir. So I'd like to have the privilege of introducing Tamil Selvan, sir. He is now holding as a professor in HOD, Department of General Surgery, Government Medical College and ESA Hospital, Coimbatore. He is a well-known academician all around the southern states here, and he is member of many surgical societies. And to his credentials, he has many national and international papers, and he is an UG and PG examiner for many universities in southern states. And he has presented various surgical topics in the state and national level conferences. And he received the Best Doctor Award from district collectors from Coimbatore and Salem twice, and Best Doctor Awards in 2019 Health Minister. And he is known for his newer technique in woven darning technique in the management of huge midline incisional hernias. And his special field of interest is management of burns and diabetic foot. And I am privileged to have you here to our students for the benefit of our students. And we are happy to hear, and we sincerely thank you for accepting this opportunity. Thank you, sir. Now I request our Dean sir to say a few words about this webinar, sir. Thank you.
Good morning to all. Indeed, it is a great pleasure to inaugurate this webinar on short cases, as Dr. Tirana Sambandam and Dr. Chandana said. The students will much benefited out of this. The scenario is changing. So previously, nothing is more helpful. Personal touch should always be there. But in this present scenario like COVID, students are unable to see cases. Anyway, we have to teach. So the webinars will definitely, your case presentations are a very important one for undergraduates and the postgraduates also. So that will help to gain some knowledge and practical things they learn. I thank Dr. Tamil for your invitation and taking part in this webinar as a resource person. Thank you very much, sir, for coming and accepting our invitation on behalf of the management and the chairman. I thank the children. I thank them for this webinar. Seminar will be a success one. So wish you all the best and thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, sir. The stage is yours, sir.
Good morning, sir. Good morning to one and all in the link. First of all, I bring a very good morning once again from Coimbatore, and this is a beautiful sunshine in Kanyakumari, sunrise in Kanyakumari. The photos which I am going to post in this session is all taken by me or some of my PGs when I am operating. Why I am telling this? You should have an artistic outlook if you want to become a surgeon. This is what I wanted to convey by posting all these photographs in this session. And for the younger surgeons who have already become surgeons, or the future surgeons, the undergraduates who are going to take surgery as their career, should have an artistic ideas, artistic mind. Then only you can imagine your results before even you put your knife on the patient. If you are putting an incision on the face, how it will appear, how the cosmesis of the patient will be affected. So like that, we should have an imagination, an artistic view. So if a surgeon is a good artist or a good photographer, he will make an excellent surgeon. That is what my experience is all about. I think Dr. Thirinyanam will accept my view. Sir has seen my photography. Sir, last time I used to interpose with flowers in my speech. This time it is going to be birds. All these birds are seen in and around Coimbatore, in around 36 lakes around Coimbatore. And during October to February, if you go around Coimbatore early in the morning, you could see all these birds, beautiful sceneries. So this is what I'm going to post today. I think, sir, someone should change the slide for me. It is not getting. Hello, IT people? IT people? Yeah, now it is. So this is what sir was telling. Short cases are the one, even as an undergraduate, if you may not do surgeries, but you see short.
Not at share, sir. Your slide is not at share. Just click the share screen option, sir.
1 minute, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now is it?
Yes, sir. You have to click that. That's great.
1 minute, sir. Sir, is it? Are you getting my slides?
No, sir. Not yet, sir.
Sir, the Zoom is not working on it. Are you getting my speech?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But why not the slides?
Sir, share screen click on circular green color from the bottom.
What one, sir?
Bottom.
ಇಲ್ಲ, one ನಿಮಿಷ. That is not there. That is why issue. I'm not getting the.
Share the screen.
Sir, mouse கீழ கொண்டு வாங்க சார். மவுஸ் பாயிண்டர் கீழ வந்தா வரும் சார். பாப்பப் மாதிரி உள்ள வந்துரும்.
இல்ல சார், அந்த ஜூம் மீட்டிங்கோட இதுவே ஓபன் ஆக மாட்டேன்.
இல்ல சார், நீங்க மவுஸ் பாயிண்டர் கீழ கொண்டு வாங்க சார். பாயிண்டர் இருக்குல்ல சார், கீழ அப்படியே
வரல சார். That is the issue. 1 minute, I'll just.
Sir, can you just send your PowerPoint to the mail, sir? Otherwise, we'll open from our side if it is possible.
Mail ID, sir. Mail ID அனுப்பிச்சிட்டுமா?
அனுப்பிடுங்க சார். AMCA
ஒரு நிமிஷம் சார். மெயில் ஐடி சொல்லுங்க.
A
1 minute.
சார் வந்துருச்சு. இல்ல
வந்துச்சா?
இல்ல வரல சார்.
Get it?
Sir, ABCH.
இல்ல இருக்கா, இப்ப வருதா சார்?
இல்ல வரலைங்க சார், வரலைங்க.
1 minute, sir.
சார் சார் உங்க வந்து வாட்ஸ்அப் அனுப்பிச்சிருவாங்க சார்.
Sir, இப்ப வந்துச்சுங்களா? Sir, are you able to see? Are you able to see now? Hello?
Sir, no, sir, no, no. Sir, one second. Sir, can I just attend my call, sir?
ஃபர்ஸ்ட் வந்து சார் PPT ஓபன் சார். ஃபர்ஸ்ட் PPT
மார்னிங் இது ஷேர் கொடுக்கணும் ஜூம்ல. போக மாட்டேங்குது. வேற ஒரு சார்ஜர் வேணும்.
Sir, we are able to see the slide, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, are you getting now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's fine. You are able to see the slide, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
வர மாட்டேன். தான் இருக்கு.
Sir, we are able to see the slide, sir.
Sir, good morning.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello?
Sir, your voice is clear and we are able to see the slide, sir.
இந்த நம்பருக்கு ஒரு ஃபோன் அடிமா. இந்த ஃபோன்ல இருந்து எடுத்து டிஸ்கனெக்ட் ஆயிடுது. ஃபோன் அடிப்பா. 984 215 8788 8788 சரியா தானே இருக்கு. ஹலோ
Yes, sir.
உங்களுக்கு கேட்க மாட்டீங்களா?
Hello. Sir, எங்களுக்கு கேக்குது பாட் பாட்டு தெரியுது சார். உங்களுக்கு தான் நான் பேசுறேன்.
நீங்க அன்மியூட் பண்ணுங்க.
சார் எங்களோட அன்மியூட்ல தான் இருக்குங்க சார்.
எனக்கு வியூ வர மாட்டேங்குது. ஒரு நிமிஷம் இருங்க சார்.
சார் நீங்க லேப்டாப் ஸ்பீக்கர்ல கேக்குறீங்களா வெளியில எக்ஸ்டர்னல் ஸ்பீக்கர் வச்சிருக்கீங்களா சார்? சார் லேப்டாப் ஸ்பீக்கர் கொஞ்சம் வால்யூம் ரொம்ப கம்மியா இருக்கு சார்.
லேப்டாப் ஸ்பீக்கர் தாங்க சார் அது. இல்லப்பா இதுல வந்து
வீட்டுல இருந்துச்சு
ஆ.
இப்ப அது
நமக்கு கேட்கலையா?
கேக்குது சார், எங்களுக்கு கேக்குது சார்.
ஓகே
எங்களுக்கு கேக்குது சார்.
ஒரு நிமிஷம்
கேக்குது.
சார் ஆடிபிள்?
எஸ் சார், எஸ் சார், பர்ஃபெக்ட்லி
Yes,
ஃபைன்.
sir. Sorry for the interruption or initial hiccup I wish.
ஓகே சார், தேங்க் யூ சார். நோ ப்ராப்ளம்.
So this is the idea of giving a gist of all the short cases which are very essential for the undergraduates in the examination. And as an undergraduate, you may not see all the major cases in day-to-day life, but a sebaceous, a confort, all these things you will see in day-to-day life. So a knowledge of overall knowledge of all these short cases will be very useful in your day-to-day clinical practice after your MBBS. So once again, since I am going to start new, good morning to all. Now, what do you see here? Students can respond now. What do you see in the screen now? Anybody? I want someone to respond. Otherwise, I don't know whether you will be sleeping or not.
Students,
Hello?
you just see, just no, you can
What
just,
is
you can just
what is on the screen?
no need to message, you can just speak that. Speak in your mic.
Unmute yourself and talk. See, this photo was taken by me when I was traveling from now Ramanathapuram to Madurai. If anybody could say what it is, I'll appreciate. What do you see now? See, this is an interactive session, not a lecture. You should respond. Nothing wrong, even if you commit some mistake. This is nothing related to your subject. What do you see?
Sir,
Hello?
one thing, sir. Here, we have to unmute the students. It's not possible to unmute all the students, sir, because it will become a chaos. So whenever you want to have a response, then you can unmute. They are answering, sir. You can see in the chat box, sir.
Okay, sir.
Can you see
I'll
the
see the chat.
box, sir? You can see many answers to your questions, sir.
Question and answer, is there more? Chat
Chat box.
Chat box is not, I'm getting here.
Sir, I will read the answers, sir. It's like
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
it's like greenery, elephant like bush.
Super. Super. Whoever has seen an elephant is an artist, because it is just a bush on the roadside. Okay. But if you look at it as a bush, it will be a bush. If you look at it as two elephants standing, one just near to another, you are an artist. This is how a surgeon should look into any of his patients. Before you put your knife, have an artistic view, idea, so that your performance, your post-operative results, cosmesis will be better. So that is why I put this slide. What does this slide tells you? If you want to be a successful practitioner or a successful student, you should stand alone like this, clear about a top on everybody. This is the message I wanted to give you by putting this poster. This was shot at Poor, Kerala. Now, my idea is, like the previous photograph, to get a standalone ideas, to give you a standalone ideas and make you clear cut about a few short cases in the given time as much as possible. Okay. Now we'll go to the subject proper. Now here are 4 photographs where you see 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 different size of swellings, but all of them have got some features in common. There is swelling, there is redness, and there is some pus pointing. Here is also some pus pointing and some devitalization of the superficial underlying the superficial tissues. What do you think it could be? Hello?
Yes, you can type it. What do you see common in these pictures? Abscess. Sir, answer is abscess, carbuncle.
Super. So these are abscess in common, right? Now, these are the clinical features of abscess. You get calor, temperature, dolor, pain, tumor, swelling, and rubor, redness. And there may be some loss of function, but here in this case, it is a temporary one. Okay. And there may be some devitalization of the skin overlying. You see this overlying skin devitalized. This is another picture where you have an extensive cellulitis and an underlying abscess. Here the skin over the swelling is devitalized. These are the common features of an abscess. How? Define an abscess. Since it is difficult for you to write or not answer over the phone, I'll just go through it. It's a localized collection of pus in a cavity lined by granulation tissue in a confined tissue or an organ space. This is a definition of the abscess. There are different types of an abscess. There may be pyogenic, pyemic, and metastatic. Okay. So pyogenic is commonly what you see is a pyogenic abscess, maybe due to Staphylococcus aureus or Streptococcus faecalis, Streptococcus hemolyticus. So many organisms are there. So this is a pyogenic abscess. Sometimes you will get pyemic abscess. Pyemic abscess in the sense, pus from one focus gets spread to other focus, producing another abscess in a distant place. That is pyemic abscess. And like metastatic abscess is also. What are the causative organisms? Answer. What are the common causative organisms?
Check the answers. Staphylococcus, Staph aureus,
Okay.
Streptococcus,
Yes.
most of the answers are Staphylococcus.
Okay. You are right. Staphylococcus aureus, Streptococcus pyogenes, gram-negative organisms, and sometimes even anaerobes can produce abscess. What are the complications of an abscess?
Fistula, sinus,
Bacteremia, pyemia, metastatic abscess, multiple abscess formation, sinus and fistula formation. Those who said sinus and fistula formation, hats off. And you could get septicemia also. Right. These are the complications of an abscess. These are photographs showing multiple abscesses. These kind of multiple abscesses commonly occur in nutritionally compromised individuals, immunocompromised individuals, or those who want immunosuppressive drugs. So these are multiple pyemic abscess. How will you treat them? Normally, we say IND. IND means incision and drainage. The aim of an incision and drainage is the pus should be drained first to relieve the patient of his symptom. The common symptom is being severe pain. Second thing is to decompress the tissues, and then it increases the perfusion so that this tissue starts repairing itself. This is the aim of the treatment. Now, this is a diagram showing Hilton's method of incision and drainage. What is Hilton's method? What is Hilton's method of draining an abscess?
draining at maximum pointing. Sir, I'm reading out the answers by the students.
Okay. Okay.
Incision at the maximum point of budging, full shape incision, like that they have answered.
So the Hilton's method of IND is The aim is to drain the abscess. At the same time, you should prevent the damage to the neurovascular bundle, important neurovascular bundles in the nearby area. The skin incision may be in any direction depending on the Langer's line of a given point. That is for cosmetic purpose. But once the skin and subcutaneous tissues are cut, when you are entering the abscess cavity, you should enter in a direction parallel to the neurovascular bundle, which is adjacent to this particular abscess or anything, so that the damage to the neurovascular bundle is prevented. That is Hilton's method of draining an abscess. And there are few places in the body. Normally, what we'll say, initially the abscess develops as an induration and then suppuration. Then it will point out. Then only we'll do an IND. But there are few places in the body where you should not wait for the fluctuation to develop and the pus to point. Otherwise, what will happen? These are the places like parotid, where there is a dense fascia covering the parotid gland, and breast abscess, where it is divided into multiple lobules by the fibrous septum, and pulp abscess, again, multiple fibrous septum divide the pulp, and the ischiorectal fossa, where it is completely loaded with fat, which are very less in blood supply. These are the places, if you wait for the suppuration to occur and first to point, extensive damage will happen and there will be damage to the vital structures. So here are the places where we should not wait for suppuration and first to point. Once you suspect an abscess, do an ultrasound or any investigation which is mandatory, and then drain the pus at the earliest. See, this is a parotid abscess, this is a breast abscess, this is a pulp abscess. Here, why we are so particular about the pulp abscess is the distal phalanx, the blood supply of the distal two-thirds of the phalanx comes from the where? The proximal one-third gets the blood supply from the tendon, flexor pollicis longus, whereas the distal two-thirds gets the blood supply from small arteries which are traversing the pulp. These arteries will become thrombosed because of the sepsis and pressure, and the distal two-thirds of the phalanx as well as the fat in the pulp will become necrosed very soon. And the proximal one-third of the distal phalanx will survive. To avoid, because the fingers are very important for us, to avoid damage, we should drain the pulp abscess at the earliest. And this is an ischiorectal fossa abscess, which should be drained at the earliest. And there are certain abscesses where we call them as cold abscess, where you will not have the clinical features of an abscess, like Callar, Dollar will be there, Callar, Dollar, tumor will be there, redness may not be there. These abscesses are called cold abscess, mainly from tuberculous abscess. If you see here, 1 and 2 abscesses are there, and there are 2 or 3 sinuses. These are the remnants of the previous abscess which are not healed properly. This is very typical of a tuberculous abscess. And if you see very close, the sinuses are surrounded by a bluish discoloration, which is a salient feature of a tuberculous sinus. So this is a tuberculous sinus, this is abscess, and this appearance is called scrofloderma. Scrofloderma. So now, the end of the first case, and these are the beautiful peacocks, again photographed in Coimbatore in our own college, Coimbatore Medical College. Now, we'll go to the second case. So there is a concentric ring you see in the 5th toe. Okay, and this toe appears shiny. What is the diagnosis?
Anybody? Can type the answer?
Yes, sir. Anybody? Anybody?
No, sir. I think they have not seen this type of cases.
See, this is called Einham. Okay. So what will happen? The ring concentric ring will appear in the fifth toe at the proximal interphalangeal joint. This ring will go on increasing or deepening, and finally the portion of the toe distal to the ring will be amputated, auto-amputated. This is called Einham. Etiology being a disease of unknown etiology. A history of running barefoot in childhood is said to be a common cause. A fissure develops at proximal interphalangeal joint, which becomes a fibrous band that encircles the digit, causing necrosis and then gangrene. It's very common in black-skinned people, especially Negroes. You should not put a word Negro, that is why I have not added. We can say black-skinned people, and common in male, and very commonly seen in the fifth toe, but other toes can also be affected. So this is another case which is almost the ring has deepened, nearing auto amputation. The treatment being, in the early cases, you can do a Z-plasty at the level of the constriction, or you may have to end up with an amputation in advanced cases. So more often amputation occurs patient because the patient seeks advice at a later date. So this is called Einham. So this is a bird seen in Kurichikulam of Coimbatore, sitting alone, waiting for somebody. And here is a lesion just lateral to the left ala of the nose. You see a closer picture here, an ulcerative lesion with some sort of scab over that. What it could be?
Diagnosis, can type that. The basal cell carcinoma. The answer is
Super, super. So what is basal cell carcinoma? See, commonly seen in the face above the line joining the tragus and the angle of the mouth. Anybody knows what is the line?
What's the name of the line? Can you type it? What is the name of this line? Omgren's line.
Okay, good. See, above the line joining the angle of the mouth and the tragus. Normally, it is a raised and beaded margin. It never rolls out because the cells don't proliferate so much like in squamous cell carcinoma. That is why we get a rolled out edge in squamous cell carcinoma. Whereas in a basal cell carcinoma, the cells grow at a slower speed so that you don't get a rolled out edge. But there will be a central crater and a scab formation, commonly seen in field fire type of basal cell carcinoma. And normally you don't get lymph nodes in basal cell carcinoma. Why? Anybody knows? Anybody knows the reason?
Why regional nodes are not involved in BCC?
So the reason being, anybody typed it? So the reason being, I think somebody is typing.
Cancer cells are too large to permeate.
Yeah, the cancer cells are too large and the lymphatics are obliterated early in the disease process so that they don't get lymph node spread. Very good. So what is the etiology being? The etiology being exposure to sunlight, especially the ultraviolet rays of the sunlight. There are three types of ultraviolet rays. What are the two types that are responsible for inducing cancer? Of course, there is a PTCH gene mutation is also there, but the white-skinned people who are living in Australia and New Zealand, who are exposed to the tropical sunlight, are more prone for these kind of malignancies.
So type A and type B UV radiation. The answers are type A and type B. Hello? Hello?
You should have many treatments available. Okay. One is a wide local excision and SSG in case if the lesion is a bigger one. And there are a lot of other modalities. You can give low dose radiotherapy. You can use cryosurgery in smaller lesions to excise them. And you can have local chemotherapy. Local chemotherapy using 5-fluorouracil topical application can also be tried. And you can do a laser excision also. So these are the different types of treatment modalities available for basal cell carcinoma. What is the other name for basal cell carcinoma? Normally, the basal cell carcinomas are smaller lesions, but some lesions near to the eye and ala of nose,
What are the other?
they erode into the deeper tissues.
Rodent ulcer.
And we have given some name for that. Rodent ulcer. Super. So this is a rodent ulcer, typical of a rodent ulcer. And these are the different types of basal cell carcinoma. This is a field fire type. If you see in the center, it will be clear. And this is the active lesion. This is called a field fire pattern. And this is a nodular lesion. They are also basal cell carcinomas. May look different. There is pigmented variety. Now, shall we go to the next case?
Yes, sir.
This again, நீர் கோகம்னு தமிழ்ல சொல்லுவாங்க. பார்த்துக்கோங்க. இதையும் பார்த்துக்கலாம். Some general knowledge also. And here is a small sinus or a fistula situated at the anterior border of the left sternocleidomastoid. See the sinus, and there is a hood of skin above that. Okay, a fistulous opening and a triangular hood above this, and there is occasional discharge. Some amount of redness is also there. What it could be?
Branchial fistula is the answer, sir. One answer is branchial fistula.
Yes, good. So this is a branchial fistula. What is a branchial cyst? See, if you know what is branchial cyst, then only you can answer what is a branchial fistula is. So then normally, the second branchial arch, it overhangs the third and fourth, and then it fuses with the fifth one, isn't it? And this second branchial pouch, normally it obliterates. But if it doesn't obliterate, it persists as a branchial cyst in adult life. If this branchial cyst gets infected and gets burst spontaneously, or if it is treated by IND by a surgeon, then it results in a fistula. So when it may be the fistula may be congenital or acquired if a branchial cleft cyst gets infected and burst or an IND is done. So it could be a persistent second branchial cleft, usually lower one third of the neck. This is congenital. In case of acquired, normally you see at the upper one third of the neck, most probably after an incision and drainage of an infected branchial cleft cyst. This is a branchial fistula. Treatment is excision, mostly by.
Sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Here we have our senior professor, Dr. Prasad Tyagarajan, sir. So he has come here.
Yes, sir.
Want to have a few words.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Hello. Good morning, sir. Sir, voice is not little disturbed, sir.
As compared to between thyroglossal cyst and thyroglossal fistula.
Nyanam, sir.
Is always a resultant of incising an infected thyroglossal cyst.
Yes, sir.
Fistula is not, I am very sure, due to an infected branchial cyst being incised. I beg your pardon, but I think it is because the mechanism of why this branchial fistula forms is the same as cyst, but when it persists to open, because we find numerous small children also who don't have a history of any cystic or infected swelling in the neck presenting just like that with the fistula. So I humbly differ from you that a branchial fistula is a resultant of incising infected branchial cyst. Thank you, sir.
The voice is little breaking, sir.
No, sir, sir want to insist that branchial fistula usually it's not a complication of incising like what we have in a thyroglossal fistula. This is a spontaneous opening. That is what sir want to insist.
Yes, sir. That is why I put it as first is congenital spontaneous opening.
Okay, sir.
First is congenital, persistent branchial cleft, usually lower 1/3, but sometimes acquired upper 1/3. Just to show the difference only, I have just put like this.
Okay, sir.
First is only congenital, and occasionally you will get like this, which is seen in upper 1/3 of the neck. That is to show the differentiation. Otherwise, what sir is said is right.
No.
And treatment is excision, and we know the step ladder pattern of incisions in the any neck, because you cannot make a bigger incision, so you make a smaller incision surrounding the sinus opening, and then if necessary you can go further above and then start incising, and this is a completed incised specimen. And this is a kingfisher. There are varieties of kingfisher. This is a white-breasted kingfisher which came to my native place. Now, we go to the next case. These are the lesions seen on the penis. One on your left side, where the penis is totally engulfed by the lesion. And on the right side, you have a lesion at the ventral aspect of the penis. So these are lesions of carcinoma penis. Okay. And there are two other different kind of lesions where the lesion is underneath the prepuce, and here you see a nodular ulcerative lesion in the penis. So it could present it anyway, from a small lesion like this, or lesions like this, or up to a very worst lesion where the whole of penis is totally eaten away by the lesion. So the common type of carcinoma penis is squamous cell carcinoma. What are the other types, you know?
Other types, other pathological types of carcinoma penis. No answers yet, sir. You can proceed.
So we can have adenocarcinoma, even basal cell carcinoma, sarcomas, and sometimes even malignant melanomas. Normally, the next squamous cell carcinoma is adenocarcinoma, where you can get it from the Tyson's gland, which are situated on either side of the frenum of the preputial skin. So the commonest lesion is squamous cell carcinoma. Sometimes you may get other lesions like this, and the next common is an adenocarcinoma. And the etiology being, it could be a simple phimosis or a sexually transmitted disease, sometimes a genital warts, leukoplakia of the glands, and erythroplasia of curette, which is otherwise known as a Bowen's disease. The risk factor is being HIV infection, human papillomaviral infection, genital warts, poor hygiene, phimosis, tobacco. All these can contribute for the risk factors. But the etiology being a sexually transmitted multi-partner sex, genital warts, leukoplakia, and this is the commonest name which you should remember. Bowen's disease may be asked as a short nose or erythroplasia of curette. Pathological types, it could be an infiltrating, papilliferous, or an ulcerative. The clinical features being pain, altered urinary stream, fungation and induration, presence of an inguinal lymph node, or a foul smelling. Typical foul smelling discharge is a characteristic feature of a carcinoma penis. So what investigations you will do to prove your diagnosis? Any idea?
What is the investigation of choice for confirmation? Carcinoma penis. Biopsy.
So you take a wedge biopsy from the edge, and you can take FNAC if the lymph nodes are there. Normally, when there are lymph nodes, we don't take FNAC immediately as soon as you see the patient. So you treat the ulcer, and if the ulcer is getting cured, or sometimes even if the ulcer is proved to be a malignant one, we'll treat the malignancy, and then only if the lymph nodes are still persistent, we'll go for FNAC. Because most of the time, the lymph nodal enlargement is due to the secondary infection on a malignant ulcer in the penis. So wait for the lymph node to subside. If it is not getting subsided in 2 weeks' time, then we'll go for FNAC. The treatment can be divided into treatment for carcinoma in situ and for invasive carcinoma. For carcinoma in situ, we can go with chemoradiotherapy. When we talk about radiotherapy, we talk a word called brachytherapy. Molds can be used because it prevents amputation or disfiguration of the symbol of masculinity. For invasive carcinoma, we have to go for amputation of the penis. The amputation could be partial or total, depending on the site of the lesion, size of the lesion, and how much the penis is involved. So if the shaft is not involved, only the prepuce or the glans is involved. If the Buck's fascia is not involved, we can go for a partial amputation like what we have done here. But whereas if the shaft of the penis is also involved, then we have to go for a total amputation of the penis with what is called as a perineal urethrostomy. Total amputation with perineal urethrostomy. When you do a total amputation, either you can remove the scrotum, testicles, or you may leave it, depending on the patient's will and wish. But for the surgeon is concerned, if you leave the scrotum, what will happen? There will be soiling of the perineum with the soiling and excoriation. So in order to avoid this, we can even remove the testicles, or you can bury the testicles in the thigh and then remove the scrotum. It is depending on the surgeon's experience and choice. But in a case like this, where the lymph node is already fungating, nothing could be done. Only we have to go for a palliative treatment. So this is a heron, pond heron of Indian pond heron. Now we'll go to the next. Here is a lesion at the glabella, and here is a lesion just above and lateral to the eye, and this is also again in the left side of the forehead. Another lesion post-auricular region in the vertex and in the sublingual region. What are they? Any idea?
Diagnosis. Dermoid cyst, sir. Answer. They answered dermoid cyst.
Super. So what kind of a dermoid cyst it is?
Sequestration dermoid.
Sequestration dermoid. What do you mean by sequestration dermoid?
What do you mean by sequestration?
Ectoderm underneath tissues. So normally what happens, these ectodermal cells are sequestrated in the subcutaneous plane because the hyaline material that are produced by the ectoderm cannot be lysed by the tissue enzymes or fluid. So they get accumulated within the subcutaneous, forming a pseudocyst. The cyst contains putty-like desquamated material, hair follicles, sweat and sebaceous gland, and so on. So this is a typical of a pathology of a sequestration dermoid. The common sites being the skull. I showed you the photographs. Vertex, post-auricular region, external angular dermoid, root of the nose. So these are the commonest sites. Sometimes you can see in the neck and sublingual region. They are called sublingual dermoids. Investigations. In case if there is a swelling in the neck and you suspect a dermoid, what investigations you will do? You take either an X-ray or CT if available. Okay. So you take an X-ray skull or CT brain. Why should you take an X-ray skull or CT brain?
What for?
Because these,
Bony involvement, sir. Bony erosion.
yeah, they can erode the bone, or sometimes they can even have an intracranial extension. To know that, we should take an X-ray if it is available, or a CT. Here, there is a CT picture, there is a subcutaneous lesion, but no bone erosion. Whereas here, it is eroded both the tables of the calvarium. So, X-ray is a must, and if available, CT should be taken before surgery. And clinically, you should look for a cough impulse and look for erosion at the edges of the swelling. And this is an ultrasound where, apart from skull, in any other region, you can use an ultrasound for your confirmation of the diagnosis. So treatment is excision only, but if you see the excised specimen, you will see hair follicles and cartilage in the mucous materials, cartilages, all the appendages of the skin or ectoderm will be there. That is the specialty of a dermoid cyst. So these are the family of dermoids. This is the grandma, mother, and the granddaughter. So I have operated on these two, the granddaughter and the grandmother, but this lady is still refusing surgery. But all the three have a post-auricular dermoid. And what is this?
What is implantation dermoid cancer, sir? Implantation dermoid. Hello?
So this is not congenital, wherein the ectoderm is driven into the tissues, and the process is similar to sequestration dermoid. And the commonest place is foot and the hand, especially in agricultural labors. And these lesions can get infected. This is the only complication. Pain and infection are the complications. Treatment is being excision again. So this is a spotted dove, a variety of dove seen commonly in India. It's an Indian bird. These photographs are just to break the monotony. That's all. If anyone knows the name of the bird, that can also be typed in the chat box. So here is a sinus with a purulent discharge over the mentis. Can you guess the diagnosis? And this patient has got a caries tooth of the canine, lower right canine.
Osteomyelitis.
One diagnosis is good, but before jumping, because here I forgot to tell you the mandible is normal. So we should think of a dental sinus. That is why I gave a clue. There is a caries of canine tooth. So a dental sinus. How a dental sinus arises? When there is a caries tooth, the root get infected, and there comes a periapical abscess in the alveolus, and this abscess can drain to the exterior in many directions, producing a sinus. One such sinus is called a dental sinus. This is the diagrammatic representation. There is a caries tooth, the pulp gets infected, root abscess or periapical abscess is produced, and this is a picture. This is the root which is infected, and you see a clear erosion of the bone. This is a periapical abscess surrounding the apex of the root of a tooth. And this periapical abscess can drain to the exterior in many ways. And an upper alveolar tooth can drain this way. So these are the different directions in which the pus can drain, and this sinus is called a dental sinus. So before you come to a diagnosis, you should take a intraoral view of the particular tooth, or you can do an orthopantograph and then establish the diagnosis. And the treatment is only extraction of the affected tooth. Once you extract the tooth and curate out the cavity, this sinus will automatically heal. Otherwise, whatever or however much antibiotic you give, this sinus will not heal. Shall we go to the next?
Yes, sir.
So there are two photographs. This is a firm swelling seen in the subhyoid region, and this is the lateral view, which moves on deglutition and protrusion of the tongue. Any guess?
Diagnosis. Thyroglossal cyst.
I said firm swelling. Can you change?
Any differential diagnosis? Subhyoid bursa.
Yeah, it is a case of an ectopic thyroid. See, when you give differential diagnosis for midline neck swelling, you divide them into cystic and solid swelling. Cystic swelling, you give bursa, thyroglossal cyst, all that. For a firm swelling, you give dermoid, ectopic thyroid. So like that, lateral side also, you give differential diagnosis for cystic swellings and solid swellings. Earlier, I showed you one branchial clubbed cyst, which may result in a fistula. Okay, so like that, a solid swelling may be a lymph node. So you should differentiate midline and neck swelling, solid, cystic. Differential diagnosis for solid and cystic. Similarly, for the swellings on the lateral side. So this is a case of an ectopic thyroid. So what are the different positions of the ectopic thyroid? It can start from foramen cecum at the base of the tongue, suprahyoid, subhyoid, isn't it? And even you can have an ectopic thyroid in the chest. These are the various positions of an ectopic thyroid. This is a lingual thyroid, picture of a lingual thyroid. And the clinical features vary depending on the position of the ectopic thyroid. If it is a lingual thyroid, it produces different symptoms. If it is supra or infrahyoid position, it produces different symptoms. If it is in the retrosternum, it produces different symptoms. In the lingual thyroid, you will get dysphagia, pain, speech impairment, respiratory obstruction, and hemorrhage. In case of supra or infrahyoid position, the swelling in the anterior aspect of the neck, pain may be there or may not be there. Whereas in retrosternal, it can produce dyspnea, cough, and so on. And the differential diagnosis, lingual thyroid, CA posterior one-third of tongue should be kept in mind before you take up a decision. And there may be a hypertrophied lingual tonsil. For a supra or infrahyoid position, subhyoid bursa, as sir said, and someone of you responded, a dermoid cyst, cholesterol abscess, solitary nodule of the thyroid, and pretracheal and submental lymph nodes. So you should differentiate solid and cystic. Solid, what are all the diagnoses? Cystic, what are all the diagnoses? What are the investigations you will do? What are the investigations you will do to prove your diagnosis or to decide on your management?
Ultrasound, isotope scan, radioisotope scan.
Super. So you can do ultrasound to verify whether it is cystic or solid. You can do a radioisotopic scan to prove that it is a thyroid tissue, and you can do an FNAC to confirm your diagnosis. The treatment being, you put them on levothyroxine, and mostly the swelling will subside or become smaller in size. And if they become asymptomatic, you can leave them alone, because sometimes it may be the only functioning thyroid tissue in the body. So we should not attempt to remove them. If the symptoms persist and if no other go, you have to go for a surgical excision. One thing I wanted to mention is, in case of ectopic thyroid in the mediastinum, the normal thyroid will always be there. The normal thyroid will always be there. Whereas in other positions, the normal thyroid tissue may not be there. These are the points which we should remember. And this is a black-legged crane. All may look similar, but if you look at them carefully, you will see the difference. There is a brown-legged crane is there, and this is a black-legged crane. Similarly, the differential diagnosis for all these diagnoses also should be kept in mind. All may look the same, but we should be careful before deciding what to be done. So here you see 4 different lesions, all in the scrotum, left side, larger than the right. Here it is, both sides, there is enlargement of the scrotum, right more than left, and here right more than left, and left more than right. And somebody could get above the swelling. What could it be?
Diagnosis?
So there, scrotal swellings. The commonest scrotal swelling is being hydrocele. Okay. So the definition of a hydrocele is collection of fluid between the 2 layers of the tunica vaginalis of the testis. There are different types of hydrocele. Anybody? You can have congenital and acquired. Among the acquired, you can have primary and secondary. Okay. So etiology for congenital, there is communication of the tunica vaginalis or the processus vaginalis with the peritoneal cavity. So it gets filled with the fluid. Whereas in case of acquired, there is a defective absorption by tunica vaginalis or excessive production of the fluid within the tunica vaginalis. And there is some interference in drainage of fluid by lymphatic vessels. So these are the etiology of hydrocele. Normally a hydrocele fluid will be amber in color. It contains water, salts, albumin, fibrinogen, cholesterol, and tyrosine crystals. It doesn't clot normally because the fibrinogen here is an inactivated form. It gets activated only when it becomes in contact, in touch with the blood. Only when the hydrocele fluid gets contaminated by blood, it will clot. Otherwise, it will not clot. This is the normal amber colored or moderate or a huge one like this hydrocele fluid. Fluid becomes hemorrhagic or the sac is thick. It is brilliantly transilluminant. This is how a transillumination has to be done. A board is kept in between, torchlight on the other side, you see the transillumination, positive. So differential diagnosis for hydrocele. Differential diagnosis for hydrocele.
Spermatocele, varicocele, lymphocele, hernia.
Okay, good. Though it is said get above the swelling, sometimes you should remember it may be an inguinal hernia also, or there may be an associated hernia also with the hydrocele. And filariasis, tumors of the testis, which may be hidden in the fluid accumulated, and cyst or lipoma of the cord, all those things should be kept in mind. Complications of the hydrocele. Any response?
Sir, there's some delay in the typing and posting.
No issue, sir. No issue, sir. Infection,
Rupture, biopsy, they are written.
yes. Infertility, all that. Good. Infection, hematocele, atrophy, leading to infertility, rupture due to trauma, herniation of the hydrocele sac, and calcification. These are the complications of hydrocele. That is why we are more bothered about what to do with these hydroceles. And the surgical techniques, you all know, one for a small hernia, sorry, for a small hydrocele, we'll do what is called as Lord's plication, and for a moderate size swelling, what we do what is called as eversion of the sac, otherwise known as Jebulai's procedure. And then for a huge sac or a thick sac like this, we'll do excision and eversion. And this is a picture of a encysted hydrocele of the cord. And this is another case of encysted hydrocele of the cord. See the huge encysted hydrocele. Sometimes this could also happen. Now we'll go to the next. A common lesion which is seen on the chest, and this is on the scapula. Any idea? It's a keloid. This is commonly seen after ear boring, and this is additional ear boring. So these are the common areas where you see keloid, which is very commonly seen when a scar is placed over a bone, especially the sternum. And sometimes you see over the deltoid region also, and ear lobules. Commonly seen in black-skinned individuals. And a keloid is a hyperpigmented lesion which overgrows the scar, and there will be itching, with the commonest features of a keloid. How will you differentiate between a keloid and a hypertrophic scar? A hypertrophic scar will be thicker, but it confined to the scar itself, whereas a keloid overgrows. That is the difference between hypertrophic and a keloid. So the treatment being, either you can inject local triamcinolone, which will produce an anti-inflammatory reaction, and it will absorb the water content of the lesion, and the lesion may become shrunk. Otherwise, we can apply some topical chemotherapeutic agents. 5-fluorouracil and bleomycin can be applied. Bleomycin can even be injected. Sometimes a low dose irradiation can be used where you cannot excise the lesion for cosmetic reasons or some other. The treatment, if the medical treatment fails, then you have to go for a surgical excision. Sometimes the keloid may recur after surgical excision. In order to prevent a recurrence, we may inject a steroid at the edges of the wound after excising this keloid. But one disadvantage is it may retard the wound healing. So sitting alone, normally we take these classes in the auditorium where everyone is there. But here I am sitting alone here, and your professor is sitting alone there, like this bird. This is the situation in a pandemic like this.
Our department faculties are here. All of us
Yes.
are.
Oh, good. But if the student interaction is there, face to face will be more interesting.
Sir, but the problem is when nearly 200 students are logged in, when you open the mic, it will become a big
Lot of echoes, I understand.
disturbance. That is why we are not able to allow.
No issue, sir. No issue. We'll go to the next case, sir.
Yes, sir.
So here is a hemispherical swelling at the nape of the neck. At the end of the session, I'd like to get the feedbacks from the students, which will be encouraging for me and as well as for your professor,
Yes, sir.
who
Sure.
has taken a lot of pains Dear students, please do respond, okay? Here is a hemispherical swelling in the nape of
What is the diagnosis? Lipoma.
pseudo fluctuation was positive.
Lipoma.
So the diagnosis is obviously a lipoma. Okay, very good. What is the other name for lipoma? It is called a universal tumor because you see fat everywhere except intracranium. Intracranium, you will not get lipoma. Okay. So this is, you can get a lipoma here in the hand. You can get a lipoma in the intra-axillary region. You can get a lipoma on the back. You can get lipoma in the natal cleft. You can have an abdominal lipoma like this, a huge lipoma. So it can occur anywhere. Okay. And a lipoma in the retroperitoneum or upper part of medial aspect of the thigh are more prone for malignant change. Lipoma is nothing but a collection of a localized collection of an adipose tissue cells within the confined space. And depending on their site, they can be classified into many ways: subcutaneous, submucous, subserous, like that. So many classifications can be, depending on their anatomical locations, you can make. And remember, lipoma in the retroperitoneum or lipoma in the medial aspect of the thigh are more prone for malignant transformation. And any lipoma, if you see a neovascularization like this or like this, suspect malignant transformation. So neovascularization is an indication that there could be malignant transformation. Treatment being intracapsular excision because it has a pseudocapsule surrounding the tumor. We go for an intracapsular excision. This is how an excised specimen looks like, a lipoma. Okay. So it's a red mode, a type of a hen or cock seen in and around Coimbatore. So this is an ulcerative proliferative lesion seen in the breast. Okay. What could be? Because of the time constraint, I just put it. So it is suspect Paget's disease. These are other lesions, can present like this, can present like this. So it is a malignant condition. Remember, wherever you see a lesion like this, there is an underlying malignant tissue of the breast. So it is a superficial manifestation of an intraductal carcinoma. The clinical feature being is unilateral destruction of the nipple and areola. 80% of the invasive ductal carcinomas, or 90% of the time, there will be invasive ductal carcinoma, and in 70% of the time, there is an underlying mass in the areola. The investigation being, we should do a mammogram to rule out an underlying lesion and take a biopsy from the edge, a wedge biopsy, and you can even do a cytopathology from the discharges. The treatment being, it's being a superficial manifestation of an underlying lesion, a modified radical mastectomy is the treatment. And sometimes, if the patient is very particular, we can go for a breast conserving surgery. And this is typical of a PUD orange. Though it is not a Paget's, I just wanted to show you this picture because you should remember how a PUD orange will look like. It is due to obstruction of the subcutaneous lymphatics in case of a carcinoma breast. And the hair follicles, where there are hair follicles, the edema cannot spread. So they appear like dimples, and there is in between areas there is edema, lymphedema. This is a reason for the PUD orange, and this is how a PUD orange looks like. Sir, it is 12:05. Shall we stop or shall we go with one more case?
We can go, sir. We can have another 10 to 15 minutes, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So this is another commonest lesion. One lesion you see a hemispherical swelling in the back, and on close observation you see a small punctum-like lesion. What's your diagnosis?
Sebaceous cyst.
Absolutely right. And this is another lesion in the pinna. And this is how as a punctum looks like. The punctum looks like, a punctum looks like. So a punctum is a characteristic feature of a sebaceous cyst. You should not miss it. And if you see in a sebaceous cyst, normally there will be loss of hair over the lesion when compared to the nearby region. And if you see here, there is a groove. This is what is called as molding, because the sebaceous cysts contain a pultaceous material. If you press this swelling, the indentation produced by your pressure will remain there for some time. This is called molding. Okay, this is again a characteristic feature of a sebaceous cyst. And this is how a sebaceous cyst looks like. And the complications of sebaceous cyst, what are they? One, I have said infection. Any other complications? What is this? This is a beautiful sebaceous horn. This happens when the cyst ruptures and the materials are discharged very slowly. It gets dried up on the surface and produce a hard lesion like this, which is called a sebaceous horn. So infection, sebaceous horn formation, and you'll see multiple sebaceous cysts. And one of the rare complication is a verrucous carcinoma of in a sebaceous gland cyst. So whenever you excise a sebaceous cyst, don't say it is just a sebaceous cyst. Please send it for biopsy. Remember, a rare occasion you could get a verrucous carcinoma also in a sebaceous cyst. And this is a hyperpigmented lesion. This is an ulceroproliferative pigmented lesion in the scalp and in the neck. What it could be? So it's a case of malignant melanoma. The clinical features are there will be a pigmentation or sudden change in color in a non-pigmented lesion, irregular surface and margin. It will grow rapidly in size. There may be ulceration, bleeding, or itching. The clinical types can be superficial spreading, nodular melanoma, lentigo maligna melanoma, acral lenticus melanoma, amelanotic, desmoplastic. This amelanotic, we should remember, sometimes it may resemble like a pyogenic granuloma, but it could be a melanoma. So unless otherwise proved, we should have this lesion in mind. The risk factors being exposure to sunlight, especially the UV light, is the more common cause. Okay. Other being ethnic reasons, socioeconomic status, so many others. And remember this word, junctional nevus. The junctional nevus is the one which will most commonly cause for the malignant melanoma. Others I'll skip for want of time. If possible, I'll show one more case. So this is Breslow's classification. 1, 2, 3, 4, and this you can read from the book. And the differential diagnosis being so much. So much of diagnosis can be given as a differential diagnosis for a malignant melanoma. So always you should suspect a malignant melanoma if there is a least pigmentation in a given lesion and the patient complains of itching and sudden increase in size. You prove it beyond doubt that it is not melanoma. And this is isolated limb perfusion in an oxygenated chamber. This is the melphalan is normally used for chemotherapy, which can produce a lot of systemic reactions. To avoid that, you can cannulate the femoral artery and the femoral vein, and you can circulate the chemotherapeutic agent only for the affected limb, so that the system is not disturbed by this agent. The systemic toxicity can be reduced. This is isolated limb perfusion. So this is a Twitter. Very difficult to catch a Twitter like this. You have to wait so patiently. And your camera should be ultra high speed. Now, we'll go to the next. What is this? A cystic lesion underneath the tongue.
Granular.
Good. What is a ranula means? Literally, the meaning is frog belly. What is the pathology? So it is extravasation of the mucus from the sublingual gland. That is the reason for a ranula formation. And because it is covered by a translucent membrane and it looks clear like a frog's belly, it is given the name ranula. This is a plunging ranula. When the extravasated mucus descends into the neck between the fibers of the mylohyoid, a resultant lesion is a plunging ranula. Okay. This is a mucus cyst. What is the difference? This also arises from a salivary gland, accessory minor salivary glands. What is the difference between a mucus cyst and ranula? A ranula is due to extravasation of the fluid mucus from a sublingual gland, whereas here there is obstruction of the gland and the mucus gets accumulated within the salivary gland itself. So it is a case of accumulation of mucus within the gland. There in ranula, it is extravasation. Both is excision only. But in case of a plunging ranula, or there is a big ranula where you cannot do a total excision, sometimes you can do what is called as marsupialization. So you gave a differential diagnosis for hydrocele. One of it is varicocele. Varicocele is nothing but a dilated tortuous pampiniform plexus of veins. Okay. So commonly it is seen on the left side than the right side. The anatomical reasons for that is the left testicular vein drains in the renal vein just opposite to where the adrenal vein drains. Whereas the right testicular vein drains obliquely into the inferior vena cava. So the pressure from this vein, a backflow is the resultant cause for the varicocele, common to be common on the left side. This is how it looks like. The pampiniform plexus becomes dilated and tortuous. Bunch of worm appearance. Bunch of okay, and there is infertility because in varicocele there is stagnation of blood within the scrotum and the local temperature rises and the maturation of the spermatozoa is defective and it results in infertility. So the ligation is the treatment of choice. The ligation can be done in the suprapubic region, but here we normally don't do a suprapubic ligation. The reason being atrophy of the testis is very common if you do a suprapubic ligation. So normally we do an inguinal ligation. Sometimes we can do a retroperitoneal ligation, either by open method, Palomas method, or a laparoscopic ligation could be done. These are the various modalities of ligating.
Your screen sharing is disabled, sir.
1 minute, sir. 1 minute, sir. Now, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we are able to see that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So ligation is the treatment of choice, there are different techniques. You have a suprainguinal, suprapubic, inguinal, retroperitoneal, laparoscopic ligation. This is just opposite to what we make for appendix incision. So here and here, Palamas procedure, both, if you damage the ilioinguinal nerve, you can get a direct inguinal hernia in future. Sir, I think I have come to the end. Within the given time, I could finish off 15, 16 cases. So now you take some time for discussion and students can give the feedback.
Yes, sir. That was a wonderful presentation. We are able to see all the cases. Most of the cases are being kept in the final year examination for short cases. And some cases we may not see here due to the pandemic situation, as our one of our faculty told. Here we are able to see all the clinical cases with a wonderful pictures, sir. So mostly, almost 90% of the cases for the examination will be only within the list which you have presented. So this is a wonderful presentation and a very useful topic for the undergraduate students. I hope it will be very useful for them for their examination purpose, not only for that, and also for practical purposes, it will be useful for them. It is just leave the thing for them to give them the feedback through the chat box. I'll read the feedback, sir.
Yes, sir.
Students, can you give us a feedback for this session? Very informative session, sir. All the pictures were very clear, and thanks for the presentation. Thank you, sir. It was a useful session, and those photos helped us to orient the cases. Very useful exam cases. Thank you, sir. Wonderful pictures, sir. I don't know what about it. It's about the birds picture or the clinical pictures.
I don't know. They have to tell us.
I think both. The credit goes to both the things, sir. Thank you, sir. Very informative. Could make out the differential diagnosis as well. Thank you, sir. Very useful topic and presentation. Hope we also improve our artistic mind, sir. Thank you. Thank you for organizing such an informative webinar. Came to know about different cases. Also, the pictures were amazing, sir. Always a fan of you or photography. Somebody, I think you have got our fan, Akshaya Nandini. Thanks a lot and so helpful, sir. Thank you, sir. It was a very interesting session. Okay, sir. Those are the few feedbacks which I read from the chat box, sir. So, wonderful presentation. Yes, sir. Pictures help to relate with the case and understandable. It is very helpful.
In fact, I should thank you, sir, for having arranged such a wonderful platform so that it is our knowledge is being utilized for the betterment of the next generation.
It's our privilege, sir, to accept and you give us a lecture. I think you have taken off for the purpose and you have presented very well. And we hope we will have some more interactions with our students, sir. Excellent session and thank you, Doctor. Very informative, simple teaching for students. The clinical cases were
That is comment given by?
Sir, Dr. Krishna Priya. I think
okay.
The name is not.
No, that is mother of one of my students.
Oh, that was wonderful, sir. That was so nice to hear. Pictures helped me in identification of the cases. As a photography lover, I admire your photographic skills, sir.
Even this flower is on the screen was taken by me in Berricham Lake, Kodaikanal, when we went for ASI last 2015.
Berricham is a wonderful place, sir.
Yes, sir. Sir, so kind of you. So I should be really grateful for remembering me and then inviting me for this wonderful session. And future also we can plan if any such programs are there. I'm there to extend my cooperation with you all, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And I need some comments from the faculties also.
Yes, sir, all the faculties are here, sir. Dr. Chandran, Navneet, Bijo, feedback, sir, wants some feedback.
Sir, an excellent presentation in a short span of time. Very much needed for the students. I think they have made the best use of it. Can't make it much more concise and clear. Great effort, sir. You did on Kaka Kaka Tamil.
What's that?
You did the role of Kaka Kaka Tamil.
I request our Professor Navneet to share a few words, sir.
So definitely it's a very useful for undergraduate students. Definitely it will be helpful for them. Give a chance a lot for studying the time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
I request Vishal to give a vote of thanks. Our registrar.
Sir, it has been a great pleasure. Sir, it has been a great pleasure for me to give the vote of thanks. First, I would like to thank our chairman, Mr. J. Satish Kumar sir, then our Dean, Shanmugam sir, legal superintendent, Dr. N. Mohan sir, and our vice principal, P. Usha madam. And last but not least, our speaker with an excellent artistic skills, Professor N. Kaman sir, for his wonderful session, wonderful live and interactive session with the students as well as the faculties. Thank you all once again.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank
We'll
you.
deal in.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yes, sir. Sir, you will be receiving an e-certificate from our IT session, sir, for this session.
Okay, sir.
So kindly accept that on behalf of our department and our college. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.